Good morning. First of all, three out of three presentations today, or actually 3 out of 4 presentations today are about politics. One is about clientelism, and the title of the panel is Everyday Life. So it tells you much about our overall findings of the project when you put clientelism into everyday life. But anyway, we studied clientelism from the perspective of what types of practices are there into the Western Balkan region. And we drew upon this definition based of other scholars about clientelism being a practice of political mobilization, which is non-programmatic, so it doesn't rely on any extensive work of, manifestos, ideology, and so on. And it's actually linking political elites and voters through non-programmatic means. So it is much more centered around finding potential voters and catering directly through them, and penalizing non-loyal citizens in their political strategy. So what are the consequences of this is that actually clientelism is sort of like a perverse accountability. So it relies, so in let's say programmatic politics, where you have strategies of gathering votes or political mobilization based on political programs and analysis of policies and needs, the accountability burden is over the political elites, over the politicians. So they have to deliver something to every citizen, ideally. In terms of clientelism, the accountability burden is on citizens. They have to deliver votes to the political parties. So they are given something. Specifically, they, as individuals, are given something in return to their loyalty, to vote. To give them back votes. So this kind of political strategy actually then develops, how should I say, focus of political parties on predicting the behavior of their clients. So they have to know how their clients are going to vote. So they end up analyzing what they need and then monitoring their behavior, particularly during elections. So for this purpose, they have positive inducements and negative inducements, and how to secure loyalty. In positive inducements, are kind of motivating them to vote for them, and negative inducements in general can be summed up as some kind of penalizing strategy if they do not vote for them, so kind of intimidation. There are 2 types of relationships between patrons and clients: electoral or short-term strategy, where they come during election campaign and they offer them something in return. Most typically this is vote buying. And then there is a relational long-term strategy, where they try to keep this relationship as long as they can, and this is mainly employment through party patronage. This is actually a more analytical way of looking at it. In practice, what begins from electoral clientelism ends up being relational clientelism, or vice versa. So the relationship is much more complicated than this simple division, but for analytical purposes it's quite useful because then it helps us developing some policy response to different types of clientelism. We had 4 variables in our survey. It was more than 6,000 voters throughout, respondents throughout the region. We have 4 main variables connected to clientelism. One is where you offered money or favor in exchange for a vote. And as you can see, this is very high in Albania and Montenegro. Actually, it's high everywhere because in each of the country, the block which was offered, if you project it over registered voters, it's a really huge amount of votes. Then we have another, let's call it bottom-up search for clientelism, which is the question, have you turned to a political party for help? So people come also and go to the political parties to ask for some benefits because those are the rules of the game. Those political parties become brokers of public services, and that's why they, how should I say, that's why this bottom-up clientelism comes into force, and this is also very high in each of the countries. And then we have 2 other. These are also positive inducements. So you offer something to the citizens or to your clients. And then we have mainly negative inducements, where actually managers or some people who are providing jobs to citizens intimidate them and request them to attend party rallies or to vote a certain way. All of these practices, no matter if they are in small percentages, can affect election outcomes significantly in each of these countries. So we developed this typology where one dimension is if there is a positive or negative inducement, and if there is an electoral or relational type of relationship in this client, patron-client tie. So typically it's vote or turnout or abstention buying in the quadrant between positive and electoral clientelism, or withholding benefits as in negative and electoral clientelism. This happens during elections typically. And then we have relational, which is rewarding loyalists or benefit seekers, or discipline them or intimidate them. And this is typically in relational negative inducement, is directed towards party members or non-loyalists. It's not a negative inducement to undecided or people who are not really close to the political parties. Relational positive type is typically connected with employment. Our respondents in our qualitative study say that actually membership in political parties has become basically one of the most dominant ways of getting employment. And the employment is what people need in the Western Balkans. Actually, employment is what people need everywhere, but particularly in the Western Balkans. Relational negative type is usually what comes during election, where actually this client monitoring practice needs to occur. And that's when actually political parties come, and those long-term relationships have to return the favor. So there are different types of practices where this kind of tie between patron and client is then controlled during elections. Electoral positive is vote buying, where people are offered money or some gifts in return for a vote. It is present in some of the countries in the Western Balkans in a more frequent way, like Bosnia or Montenegro. Not very present in other countries such as Macedonia and Serbia, and very specific to certain demographies. So it's not really kind of frequent practice. Negative electoral type is also present where electoral or vote buying is more present, is actually not paying or gathering lists of secure voters, or monitoring how they how certain neighborhoods vote. What we are trying to argue is actually that electoral clientelism is not that frequent, and the majority of rules which are enforced in the Western Balkan countries are directed towards electoral clientelism. You have a certain specific set of rules that come into fruition before elections, during campaigns, in an effort to actually close or prevent vote buying, where actually the vote has been bought years before elections. So we are trying to create this level playing field in the Western Balkan countries between political actors in their political competition, but actually with electoral rules, but actually more general rules about good governance, anti-corruption rules, are much more important to securing this level playing field than electoral rules. So there has to be more focus on preventing long-term dependency between patrons and clients, and not only like preventing public procurement, preventing employment in administration 1 month before election. This doesn't really work. It doesn't solve the problem of clientelism and uneven chances of political competition. And what we are still thinking is how to name these quadrants. So how to title them. Because we kind of, when we started doing this, we wanted to describe them, but now we have to offer this typology with names. So if you have some ideas, feel free to approach us. Yeah. Okay, thanks.